Thank you all for coming, and it's really wonderful to be back in South Korea.
I'm very excited to be back here in Korea, and thank you for having us. I'm really excited about presenting Mission Impossible Rogue Nation to all of Korea, and to be here with Chris McQuarrie again. This is our 5th film that we've made together, and we actually just finished the movie a week ago Saturday in London. And the moment we finished it, we went on this tour, and one of the things we do when we're making a movie is talk about all the places that we're going to go to, and we are very excited to bring it here to Korea, and I can't wait to see it on the screen this evening. So thank you all very much, and thank you for the warm welcome. Well, it's interesting. First of all, 1996, in 95, it was the first film I ever produced. It was Mission Impossible. And I'm very much a student of film. And I waited a long time. I'd been asked to produce movies before that and direct films, but it was the first film when I went to Paramount that I wanted to produce. Because growing up, since I was a little kid, I remember 4 years old, I wanted to make movies, and I wanted to travel the world. And I think that Mission, I love the theme song and I love the TV series, and for me to be able to take a movie and go and travel in the world, what I was hoping is to have something that will go into different cultures. I can work in those cultures with an international cast and have these kinds of the spy thriller, but very it's not just character. It is character story, but also the action and suspense. They're very challenging films as a producer, filmmaker to make. Creating stories, creating set pieces that serve as character. So, for me, I feel it's amazing that this is, the 5th one. And every time I make a film, I learn something, particularly Mission Impossible movie. So I'm very excited to be here to be able to present it. And Chris McQuarrie, he was not credited on Ghost Protocol, but he wrote the structure and scenes of Ghost Protocol. And to be here today is quite amazing. Now you want to hear about the A400? Is that also the A400?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. The A400, when Chris suggested it, he said, "You want to hang off an airplane?" I said, "Okay, let's try it out." There was a lot we had to go through to get it to the stage of shooting. We went and scouted the A400, the Airbus A400. It actually hadn't been delivered to its customers yet. And they never had a camera film on the outside of the plane. So we met with the engineers, the test pilots. I'm a pilot myself. I fly aerobatic airplanes. So we were going through it to figure out how do we do it, how do we get that shot that's on the poster right there. And Chris had designed the sequence. We did a lot of testing also because physically we didn't know what's going to happen to my body when the airplane takes off, as the wind came over the wing and the fuselage. And also at those speeds, my eyes, I couldn't keep my eyes open, I realized that. So we came up with this idea to have lenses, special lenses put in the eyes. Then of course there's the temperature. It was very cold. It was in the winter in England. And I knew I wanted to wear a suit. And then of course there was the exhaust of the jet engines that were blasting right in my face. And then of course, there was any particle that's on the runway or in the air, a bird strike, that we were very concerned about the G-forces on the lens, on the camera, because if anything happened in the airplane putting stress on that camera, they didn't want it coming back and hitting me. So when you see the shot there, I just have one, I'm wearing a rig, but it's just a very thin wire that I'm attached to, and I'm actually holding on to the side of that. And outside of the paratrooper door, you can see a little step there on the side where my feet, you can see a step on the side. I met with the test pilot, and remember we kept talking. I said, "Listen, we had to get the right angle, so we were talking about what's the angle of attack, the angle of climb out is going to be." I kept telling him, I said, "Look, I want my feet against the side of the fuselage and off the wing." Him just smiling the whole time, and he says, "That's not going to be a problem, Tom. That's not going to be a problem." So we're going down, I get attached to the airplane before the engine starts. And Chris is on the inside of the airplane looking on the monitor at the angle of the camera. And do you remember you came out, do you want to add like you came out beforehand?
I came outside to give Tom some direction.
Strapped on in the taxi, and now right we're at the top of the runway, and he came out to give me instruction.
And I was wearing very warm clothing, many layers of warm clothing. I remember how cold I was, despite having so much warm clothing on. And Tom was just wearing a suit and nothing else. And I noticed how powerful the exhaust was coming out of the engines. It made it very difficult to breathe. And I was suddenly struck with how difficult it was for Tom to do this. And he hadn't told anyone. And Tom couldn't see me because of the contact lenses, and he couldn't hear me because he had earplugs in his ear. So I couldn't really give him any more direction. And just before I left, Tom said to me, as loud as he could, shouting over the engines,
To the side of that plane.
hanging right there, he shouted, "If it looks like I'm panicking, I'm acting. Don't cut." So I knew I couldn't tell the difference between whether he was acting or really panicking. So I went back on the plane and strapped myself in and thought, well, we don't know what's going to happen.
No matter what, I didn't want him to cut, because I knew this was our chance to get it. And so then I knew, I was like, let's go. The pilot threw the throttles forward, and we started hammering down the runway. I had a hard time keeping my feet on the wing, just as we were going down the runway. We were going so fast, my legs kept popping up. I decided to visualize before we took off. When I'm acting, I know the camera, the lens, the size, and Chris and I talked so much about the sequence and the edits that he needed. And we're going down the runway. And there was a moment I'm thinking, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. We ended up doing it 8 times. So when I lived through it, and I do it, really it's for story, and it's for character, and it's to entertain the audience, and it's a privilege for me to do that. And I kept thinking about the shots, and thinking about an audience, and wanting to entertain them, and thinking, wow, maybe this will take your breath away, we'll see.
No, that was purely a consequence of story. We kept trying to come up with an ending that was bigger than the rest of the movie. And every time we did, we felt ourselves dissatisfied with the way the characters were resolving. And we realized that the conflict between Ethan Hunt and Solomon Lane was an intellectual one, and not one of big action. It was a battle of wits.
Now, I tell you, it's wonderful coming here because they love movies. And I always get such a warm welcome, and I've always, even as a kid, it's a place that I've wanted to come to, and I love the welcome that I get here, and I really appreciate it. And as for the next one, every time I've made a mission movie or made different kinds of films, people kind of look at me and go, well, now what? What's next? And I think there's always another mountain. There's always going to be something in store. And McHugh and I have been talking about, some things, but I'm not going to reveal it right now. But we got some fun things ahead. There's so many things that we come up with when we're making it, so I'm looking forward to it. And just to add with what Chris said also about story, which Mission is such a fascinating movie. There is a point where the story has a mind of its own, and what we're really proud of together is that everything wraps up in the story. I love a story that starts one way and how it all comes together at the end. I think that it's, there's so many characters to juggle in a Mission movie. I think Chris McQuarrie did an extraordinary job with that.
I think some of it was conscious and some of it was unconscious. I grew up watching all of those movies, the spy movies from the 50s and 60s, more than the films of the 70s. At the same time, I wanted to celebrate the entire series. It was the 5th film, and it had been 20 years. And so I wanted this film to harken back to all of the previous movies. There's even elements of the first movie in this movie where we've made little references to the first film throughout. For anybody who is very familiar with the first film.
You know, it is, Mission 1 is the first film that I ever produced, and you know, with each one, I love working on the story and the characters. The stunts, you know, each time we keep pushing ourselves harder and harder, and they are stunts, and so there's always a danger in doing them. But you know, fortunately, I have not had a problem. I've never missed a day of work ever in my career, and I'm always there early. And I train very hard, and we prepare very carefully for each one. You know, for 35 years, I've made movies, and I feel privileged to be able to do something that I love to do. It's my dream to be able to do this, to make movies and to entertain you. And my hours are long. Usually I'm working at least, I do 7 days a week. While I'm shooting one movie, I'm already prepping another film that I'm going to go into. So, and over the years, I've gotten, you know, very smart about how to prepare for those movies. And that's what I do. And The Impossible Mission, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know which one would be an impossible mission. I mean, it's, they're all impossible. You know, anytime you start movies, they're always, each time, it's not, you know, the fun of it is the privilege of being able to work with such talented people. You know, McQuarrie's not only my dear friend, I have great respect for him. And we're always pushing, no matter what kind of film we're making, to think about the audience and also as artists to go, how far can we push ourselves and how far can we push this particular genre for the audience and for us as filmmakers. So we moved the release date up 5 months. And we just finished the movie a week and a half ago at 2 o'clock on Saturday. That was impossible. You know, but it does. It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication. But it's something that it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to me because I love it. That's why when Simon Pegg says, you know, don't worry about this guy, you know, it doesn't sound impossible, and he's pointing his finger at Ethan, it always makes me laugh. And McHugh wrote that. Just everyone thinks like, oh yeah, you and McHugh, you guys could just do it, you know. But I have a saying, and McHugh and I use this to our crew and to everyone that we're working with, because we're always under a tremendous amount of pressure in terms of schedule, and we're pushing ourselves. We have a saying, pressure is a privilege. And that's how I feel about it. You know, Chris and I, we have several films that we're working on. Always 2 weeks into shooting with Chris, I'm always like, what's our next one? So we are talking about another mission right now, and it's pretty exciting, so we'll see.
Just that it's wonderful. This is my 3rd trip to South Korea, and we always love coming here. We love the people here, we love the country, and it's wonderful to be back here and receive such a warm welcome from everyone. We really hope you enjoy the film.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out this morning and taking the time. It was greatly appreciated. I love being back in Korea, and I'm looking forward to the premiere tonight. And thank you all again for the warm welcome.